Still do 7 NUFC Matters shows for free a week. But if you want to support the channel, there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast or video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications option. Hit the thanks button to buy a super sticker. You can do this on the live chat too. You can also join our Patreon page or buy us a coffee at the link in all of our video descriptions below. We are also looking for sponsors. If you want our latest advertising rates and how you can get involved, then email John at nufcmatters1892@gmail.com. Thanks for watching.
Request and a taste with you, well, you've gone sour. You want the world plus everything, but it won't work an hour. And now your questions are creeping and you go and buy our flowers. You throw away the dreams we had, boy. I won't allow it. I said we're gonna fall out. Let's see you get out. I think we're gonna fall out. Just shut your mouth.
Good evening, welcome along to NUFC Matters. It is the professionals with me and Stu Penman. Mitch is missing in action. Night out last night, day out, night out. We have tried ringing him and no response. He may well join us at some point, but he's crashed out just like Liverpool have in the FA Cup. Plymouth Argyle winning by 1-0. I'm pretty sure that the excuses will reign in. Me and Stu were talking just before we came on air about the team that they picked. There was a few notable exceptions, and let's hope they pick the same team for the cup final. Anyway, moving on to Newcastle United's results in the cup games, and we've got to talk about the Arsenal semi-final and the game yesterday against Birmingham. I mean, two great cup games in a matter of days, Stu. And I think the danger about yesterday's match was always going to be whether Newcastle could find it within themselves, especially with such a big change in personnel, to keep the momentum going. And they did. They managed to do it despite a horrible start.
Definitely. I think for me, the first 20 minutes or so showed the big difference between our starting 11 and our second 11. And it took them a while to find their feet. I mean, you got the weather, you got a team top the league, playing at home, crowd was up for it. For the neutral, I suppose it was a good old-fashioned cup tie, wasn't it? But we managed to eventually stamp our authority on the game, and I think class will always tell in the end, and the fitness would tell. But I think the introduction of Murphy and Tonali changed the game, and it was very much more controlled in the second half. And I think we ran out deserved winners in the end. Well, it was a good game, fair play at them, and there was some hefty challenges, but you expect that when you're playing lower league teams. Not excusing it, but you do expect it. And there was a couple where Shaw got chucked into the sidelines, and then there was one on Willock and one on Asula. They weren't even looking at the ball. They just rammed the elbows into them, but that's what it is. And we made us stay on our stuff and we won. So fair play to us, and on to the next round where we have to be one of the favourites now with Liverpool going out. And there's not many other teams in that league that would fancy drawing against Newcastle in the next round.
Yeah, very true. For me, it was a great performance, and there were some notable performances. In those kind of games, players have got to take their opportunities. And I know sometimes it's difficult because 8, 9, 10 changes, whatever you make in a cup game, it makes it difficult for those players who are coming in and staking a claim. But I thought yesterday William Asula, Osula, whatever he wants to be called, was probably man of the match. I thought he was outstanding. It's very easy to say, I've kept mentioning this to the lads. You've got to remember we're playing a League One side. Don't get too carried away. But that doesn't mean that you can't praise the effort that he put in. And he got in amongst them. He hit them hard, and that was always going to be that kind of game. Birmingham were going to try and kick us off the pitch, and we set the precedent within the first 30 seconds, just before they scored. Callum Wilson went through from the kickoff and shoulder charged both of their defenders out of the way. Obviously Birmingham went up the other end and scored. But I thought that there was some notable performances. It was great to see Wilson back to his goal scoring best, his Mucha best. But yeah, I think Asula was superb yesterday, and I think he's a winger. I think looking at that yesterday, he could easily step in against teams, moving forward on that right hand side, because he's a big lad, and he's got a bit of skill about him. When you watch him, it's not the first time we've seen that kind of step over, which reminds you of Peter Beardsley, which is not Peter Beardsley's step over, but it's an Asula step over. He's got a little trick in his arsenal, and I just thought, hey, you know what? We've got a player there who, under Eddie Howe, could be developed and may well turn out to be, a decent little buy. When he moved up front, I don't think he was as good. But yeah, what did you think of Asula's performance?
I think he applied himself very well, and as you said, there was a challenge laid out to a few of the fringe players, and he looked up for it. He looked like he wanted to impress. He looked like he believed in himself, and the fact that he wasn't playing in his natural position, he actually looked better on the right wing than he did when he went forward. But he was an easy target for their players, and he had to be calmed down a couple of times. But that shows he's up for the fight, and I thought overall he had a very good game, and it's quite reassuring considering we've only got Murphy as our only right winger. The fact is, I don't think Asula is a right winger, but he shows he can do a job, even if it's for 10, 15 minutes here and there, and rest people. Rest Murphy as it has to be. I'm quite impressed with the way that he seems to fit in with the squad. Even when he's not getting the game, he's not like the lad that's just happy to be part of it. He thinks he can become a part of it himself, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And he never stopped running. And if we had another 9 outfield players that did the same as that, we would have won a lot more comfortably. He looked at it and didn't think, right, this game's beneath me. He took the opportunity to think, this is my chance to prove I can mix it with this team. And I think he'll have to go off for that pitch as he did. Well, I was going to say with his head held high, but he was holding the back of it after being nutted, wasn't he? So, but he's got to take a lot of credit in his performance, and I think fair play to him. And it was rewarding to see. And I think special mention for Callum Wilson as well, because he started the game and he got a few knocks in there that I'm sure I wasn't the only one holding my breath thinking, no, not straight away, not his first game back. But he looked up for the battle as well. And he looked like he hasn't lost his touch either, which was good. And I love the word you used, Mucha. I've heard that for years. But he was there. He was there, and he put it away. And all of a sudden, when things start going our way, and in true Newcastle style, we had an abundance of centre-backs, and now we could be down to the bare bones again. The position that was the strongest, and he seems to be, could be the weakest in the coming days or weeks.
Jamal Lascelles maybe timing it just right. I'm seeing Jamal Lascelles maybe timing it just right to come back in and lift the cup at Wembley.
Well, that's what I said. That was my dream, wasn't it? Was it back in October? I had him and Bruno holding the trophy together with the black and white ribbons on it. So I think even if Lascelles doesn't play, I think they'll put him as part of the squad anyway. And the way they are, the camaraderie they've got between them, I think they would allow the club captain to lift off the trophy with Bruno when we win it. That's what I think. And I need to have the same dream again so I can get the scoreline. we can all look on it.
People laughed at me on Friday night on the Amigos, by the way. My prediction for the game at the weekend was 4-2. I wasn't far away. I knew there'd be goals. I had a feeling Newcastle would make big changes. But yeah, great game, great result. Anybody in the next round will do, preferably a home game. It would be nice to get a home game in the FA Cup in the 5th round, but exciting times. Newcastle, of course, still on for a domestic treble, which keeps my bet alive again. Still going into March potentially. We could still be on course for the treble. We'll wait and see. Injuries, of course. Lots of you usually ask any news. Well, we don't know. Eddie Howe will be the man who will know first, of course. I mean, it looked like Burn went off with a groin injury. Could be a couple of weeks that if it is anything more serious than just coming off as a precaution. Botman, of course, we don't really know what the situation is with Botman because we know it was his opposite knee to the one that he'd had a little trouble with, but again, precautionary. So Eddie will let us know when we come up to the game next weekend. Hopefully we'll have some positive news coming through from them. Let's move on. I did notice there was a question from Michael in the chat right at the start. Any chance we can talk about tickets tonight? The answer is no, even though it's just me and Stu. And, we've obviously Mitch may appear. But, yeah, I don't want to talk about tickets. The club are making an announcement tomorrow. So let's talk about tickets when we know what we can talk about with tickets. People are going to moan and groan no matter what they come out with. And, there's never going to be a chance to please everybody. So we're just going to have to wait and see. Any of you who took out the cup scheme, paid for the cup scheme at St James's Park this season for the League Cup and the FA Cup, though, if you go back and check your emails, I think you'll find that a lot of the information, if we get to a cup final, was in there anyway. But, they may change it. They may decide to go with something else. A lot of it depends on the allocation of tickets, but I'm sure it'll be round about 32,500 as has been predicted in the press. But we will know more tomorrow, so keep your eyes peeled on Newcastle United's website and social media, and you will find out. Denise said, I felt we now have options with Asula. He looked like he can be an option on the right wing. We've got Wilson back. Pope saves were good. Miley looked strong. It was a very tough fought FA Cup game, which we won. And Benny says, it's sod's law, isn't it? Loan or sell Kelly. Then within a week, Botman and Byrne get injured. Yeah, well, we'll wait and see. It may not be as bad as we think. Let's get to a few of the questions. And Scott, I'm going to come to you first because we never got round to talking about this on Friday night. We were too busy celebrating the fact that we're in our second domestic cup final within the space of 3 years. And Scott said, I think the most interesting upcoming topic is going to be the Man City outcome. If they really won and APT is at an end, then surely we can get some major sponsors in the next month. Yeah, I mean, we can expand it, Stu, because obviously we heard at the weekend that Manchester City are now suing the Premier League again. I mean, we're still waiting, though, for the results of Manchester City's case. There is lots of people suggesting, and that's why Newcastle are being very cautious. They're waiting to see what they can get away with, etc. So, yeah, what did you make of the news about them suing again? And do you think it'll be as quick as that if the news comes out in due course that Man City have had the result that they want, and Newcastle will then go and spend and bring things in?
I wish it would be as quick as that, but I feel whatever the outcome, there'll be a counter case from whoever's deemed to have lost. But what Man City have done is exactly what they said they were going to do. There was the hearing and the outcome at the end of last year, and they said that the results would come out in due course, like at the start of this year. And then the league tried to, well, they did. They got everyone in, and they voted. They got all the clubs to vote again. But to me, they offered sweetness to certain clubs to swing especially regarding the share issues in loans, to swing the majority into their favour. And Man City said, if you do that, we'll sue you. Just wait. And they did it, and they've followed through. They've kept their word. And it's only right, but an ideal outcome for us is Man City win it. But again, you have to remember we're only talking domestically, not in Europe. And the bigger cartel Europe-wide still have that stitched up where the rich will only get richer. So even if we do it in the Premier League, if Man City do it in the Premier League and it opens the floodgates for us, that would still have restrictions in Europe. But I think what we should be focused on is that the revenue is increasing at a very good rate. And not to go down the old road because I'm getting tired of it, but there's only two ways we can generate revenue as Newcastle United, and that's by selling players, which the new owners or the current ownership inherited a squad of not much value, shall we say, in resale value, whereas they've had to add to it, and other clubs have had probably a 15-year head start. If you look at how Ashley treated us as a commodity rather than as something that could actually generate a big source of income. And now we're in a position, this is why we keep hearing about Isak's going to Arsenal. If Isak's signing for any team in the UK, I think that'll be Liverpool. I think Liverpool want to offer cash plus a player, probably a keeper. But I genuinely believe that Newcastle will turn down any bid that comes in for Isak. The most important thing is making sure Isak wants to stay, and that's up to the players in that dressing room to put us in a position to be in the Champions League, or at worst case, I would say the Europa Cup. And if we can win this trophy next month, that'll go a long way to pacify him. And okay, we'll go one more season. His contract's till 2028. So for all intents and purposes, we hold all the aces. And if he says he's happy to stay, that's when you start talking about the 150 million mark. If he says, look, I want to leave, why would you have an asset that's just going to depreciate in value? And this is the issue that people have with the media constantly linking them with Arsenal. But I would watch out for Liverpool, because they haven't spent money in the last two windows either. And they'll have, they agreed to buy a goalkeeper, but they'll have money to spend. They'll have players to get rid of as well. So regarding Man City, I honestly think even when the outcome comes, that won't be the final thing, because I don't think the cartel will allow the Premier League just to accept that Man City beat them on that one. But ultimately, it'll create more space for us, but we have to grow ourselves. And as I've said, the only way we can do that is by selling players or bringing other revenue streams in. And that's where we go back to sponsors. But I think I've had me saying that more than enough over the last few weeks, and I don't want to bore the viewers with the same thing. I'll find out what I wrote. I'll have it written down there somewhere and repeat it if everyone wants to hear it again. But I think there's certain people at our club who are coasting in their roles and not maximising the revenue streams that we could be getting. And I know that for certain, living in this region. And I know we don't need the blue chip companies. You could get companies like electricity companies, telephone companies. There's so many companies like just under, there's like the second tier that would love to have an affiliation with the PIF, because it opens so many other doors. And the other way is, do we really want PIF funded ourselves? Funding it themselves? Is that what we want as a fan base? Because that then starts casting aspersions of, look what Man City's done, look what Chelsea's done. And then I keep going back to I like to do it organically. And if other sponsorships come in who want to be associated with us, and it will give a huge increase to their revenues, then that's the way I would personally prefer to go down. And I just think this fair market value is what should be contested from Newcastle's part. If there is any change in the Man City case, that they should test out the market, because I think the Premier League lawyers are exhausted, and I don't think they'd have the appetite to have a fight with Newcastle United's legal team. And as long as they can justify it, to me, they can question it, but I don't think they'll be able to stop a decent wage. We're now recognised as part of the big teams, not the top six, but is a big commodity within the Premier League, and worldwide we're getting recognised. If you look at our results against the so-called cartel this season, we've done very, very well. We'll take Arsenal for example. They haven't scored against us since we had hair. I think that was the last time they scored against us. But they're seen as like one of the best teams in the league. But we've got their number at the moment. Same as we have with Tottenham, and we beat Man United, we drew with Man City, we drew with Liverpool, we beat Chelsea at home and not really lost away to them. So we're holding their own. So if they can command fees for sponsorships a lot higher than ours, why can't we? We're on the same ballpark, and really people just need to start checking the league table and actually thinking bigger. And the fact that I know for certain here in the Middle East that there would be huge sponsorships, people wanting to get involved. I'm still dumbfounded about why some haven't been put in already. It doesn't have to be the big ones, but something just to keep things ticking over, to at least get all this, we have to sell, because it's a bad look. And now we're hearing it from the Man United board. We're hearing it that Arsenal don't have the money to spend, and the rules that they changed to try and slow us down has actually come back and bit them on the backside. So we're getting into a situation where they might want to change the rules as well, but they're that scared if they change it to allow them to improve. We've got so much room to catch up that if they change it to a level playing field, we'll annihilate them. And this is where there'll probably be another Premier League vote after the Man City and Premier League outcome. But for me, our best thing is the fair market value, and get that clear how they can judge it, because you can't have 2 or 3 people sitting in a room in London thinking, yes, I think that's good or that's not good, especially when you see some of the deals that have been pushed through from companies that don't even exist. You know, honestly, we'd have a legal team that would make a mockery of it. But again, try not to rock the boat. They can still increase the revenue already with what we've got. We're a much more marketable asset now than what we were 3 years ago. And the fact that we're in our second cup final, we're playing the Champions League, we're doing well in the league this year. Why wouldn't companies want to be associated with that? The whole idea is to be associated with success, and we have relative success. And with additional income coming in, we can have far greater success. And who wouldn't want to be part of that? And that's the thing that I just keep going round and round in my head. And until it happens, I won't settle. And then when it does happen, I'll think, well, why haven't we done it earlier? We can use excuses, but we need proactive people.
I think the most frustrating thing is that we just see other teams going out and spending lots of money, you know, and we know Newcastle's commercial revenue has been poor under Mike Ashley, and that's what's hampering us, you know. But then you see other teams that are, you know, in the Premier League who are you know, doing things which you would imagine would get you into trouble, or if Newcastle did it, they'd be punished. I mean, came out today about Crystal Palace. Steve Hasty sent us it earlier on today about Mateta is going to be sold by Crystal Palace by their owner to Lyon, which is a club that he owns. I mean, you know, when you see those kind of things going on, it's no wonder Newcastle fans get so frustrated that we don't appear, you know, interested in trying to bend the rules. And you know, when we sold ASM to Saudi, we didn't get what a lot of people felt would be an increased market value. We did a deal at you know, it was pennies rather than pounds. It was a crazy fee when you look at some of the prices that have been paid for players to go to Saudi.
I agree. I think sometimes they've been too cautious, not to, especially if you remember the floor at the start about we had so many different factions trying to pass their, and I'll probably say this and get pelters for it, their woke attitude on it shouldn't happen, and that company or that country shouldn't have any influence in the Premier League. But I mean, we do want to go over all ground with stuff like that, but I think they wanted to be seen as whiter and whites, and I believe they still do. But there's definitely ways that they can and should be increasing the revenue, and that sponsorships is the obvious one, whether it's front of shirt sponsors, stadium sponsors, and I know we discussed it, I think it might have been last week, where once this new stadium gets announced, which we've predicted here for a long time, and where it would be and the size of it, but some journalists will claim they've had an exclusive in the last week. That's up to them. But you could get a sponsor, as I said, the heritage, the nostalgia, the history that goes with St. James Park. Let's say we'll sponsor it for the last 3 or 4 years. Your name will be associated with that for forever and ever if you're the stadium sponsor. And I think now fans are fully understanding, or have a much better understanding of how this PSR, financial fair play, is working. I don't think there'd be too many that would go against it, knowing that all the money would go back into the club. It wouldn't go into Sports Direct's coffers or anything like that. You know, it's a game that nobody likes, but you have to know the rules to play by them. And now the majority of our fans are understanding the rules and think, if that's what we need to do, I'm for it. And there's an acceptance now that a new stadium would be the way forward. Yeah, I still hear and see and read about fans who say, no, you wouldn't get that atmosphere again like what they had on Wednesday night, which was absolutely amazing. Why wouldn't we? It's the same people. You know, it's just a couple of 100 yards up the road. It's the same people, but more of us. And when they say, oh, it's St. James Park, it's been there for 100 and odd years. How many times has it changed in our lifetime, Steve? The only thing that's changed is the plot of grass. And even that gets returfed every other year. You know, each stand's changed. It's grown, it's shrunk, it's grown again. And it'll be a new Newcastle stadium, but they still have a Gallagher end. They still have a Leazes end if necessary, you know, to placate people who are like traditionalists, I was saying. It's not me digging out with people. I understand why people want to stay there, but you can't stay there and expect to have consistent success the way the rules are. You know, it's a case of you can't have your cake and eat it. But a 70,000 seat stadium, which would break our record home attendance, and I know for certain I said on this platform, that would appeal to the Saudis that, yeah, record breakers. Remember the chairman, number one. And to say that every week we could have a record with their assistance, with their funding, and they're going to get the revenue for it. And of course, there'll be corporate, and you get people scared that there's going to be so much corporate there that there wouldn't be enough spare seats for the extra fans. There would be, because they'll build the stadium big enough to incorporate a ring of boxes all the way around the stadium. But I honestly think the atmosphere could get better. I know when I was at Wembley last year, I know when I was sitting, well, all the games I go back to, it's very rare when I'm fortunate enough to manage to get a ticket through the ballot or a friend helping out who wasn't able to go. It's very rare I'm sitting next to the same person. And then you have to be conscious that this isn't my ticket, so I've got to behave. I don't want to get asked to leave in case it comes back on them. Yeah, if you go to a new stadium, you could have people who are sitting, then you can apply and put your friends together, which for me would that not generate a better atmosphere? You know, they could have a Gallagher bit with a 20,000 stand, and if people were so inclined to do that, they could do that. There'd still be 40, 50,000 seats elsewhere where you can say, right, I want to sit with Steve Hasty, I want to sit with George Mitchell, I want to sit with Keith Patterson, I want to sit with Joe Walker, I want to sit with John Justice Allen. You know, you could get you all together and you'd feel more comfortable cheering the team on rather than, I've seen it myself, Stephen. It's not as it was, but if things don't change, they'll stay as they are. But back in the day when he stand the Gallagher, you used to go Raj and, you know, you were the odd one out if you didn't. But now if you stand up and yell your support or frustration, you end up having to like look round, wave your hand, sorry, and sit back down again. That's what the home games are coming because you sit next to people you don't really know and you're not comfortable with that. But this is why we've said many times that away games, the atmosphere is so much better consistently because no one sits, everyone stands, and you could have a seat in that section, your friend's got one in that section. You just go and stand next to each other, no one complains about it. So I honestly believe a new stadium could improve the atmosphere and it'll certainly improve the revenue. And then we're catching up. That's it. We'll catch up pretty quickly. Because if you look at how we have done transfers when we've been allowed to do them, we haven't made many mistakes. And if you look at the track record of the manager over the last 3 years, I think we should be blessed to have him. And of course, he'll make mistakes. We all do. But him in a new stadium with players that have been generated organically, as I say, the correct way, not just through some rich sheikh or benefactor, any wins that we have will have more feeling to us, and there'll be less aspersions cast from other sets of fans, like what Chelsea had to put up with, like what Man City had to put up with. I don't think there'll be a genuine fan in the league this year, if we win this cup next month, that would begrudge us it. I think they'd all believe, you know what, he's deserved it. He didn't go and splash the cash crazy as most people suggested we would. And if we do win it, we'll beat the teams to get there that are fourth, third, second, and first in the league. And that's not including Brentford. So we've done it the hard way. I don't think any other team could deserve to win a cup. I can't think of anyone who's done that in and going back in recent history, who's had to play the top 4 or 5 teams to actually win a trophy in each round, but we've done it. Well, not yet. We're on the verge of doing it. So if we can do what we got now, imagine adding an extra 100 million a year revenue coming into the club, then an extra 200 million, then an extra 300 million, and then we're on a level playing field, and we're already on the up. These people have proven that they've made changes because they're scared. Keep them scared, keep growing. And if a new stadium allows us to do that and give us consistent success, or at least the opportunity to challenge consistently, then I think we have to be for it.
A lot of people got a different opinion on Silverstone. Craig Lee, I mean, I agree with you. He says Silverstone can't be all that bad. They've named a racetrack after him. But Steve C says, I think we need to be careful criticising Silverstone. The guy isn't stupid. There'll be something we are not privy to in regard to sponsorship deals. He is on our side, remember.
I've never once said he's stupid. What I have said is I don't think he's bringing in as much. He's doing his job as to the optimum level he can do. So there's a big difference. So we have to be careful with the wording here. I believe there's more opportunities to generate more sponsorships than what's been utilised, and we can use other things as an excuse. But as I said before, the people who are proactive rather than reactive are the ones that will be more successful. Just like the problem solvers are the problem finders. We can always point and say, well, I would, but because of that, because of that, because of that. And I'm sure he is doing well as much as he can. Well, I'm not sure he's doing as much as he can. Otherwise, we'll have more sponsors. But I'm sure he's working diligently. I just believe that there is opportunity for us to have more sponsorships over the last 3 years than what we've had. And we can't keep saying we'll wait for that court case to happen, wait for that court case to happen, because we all know it'll be appealed against. You know, how long do we have to keep waiting? And this is what Steve Hasty says. The original 3-year plan's now become a 5-year plan. What happens when there's a new person comes in and he comes in with his own 3-year plan? And then 2 years into that, he gets replaced and this new guy comes a 5-year plan. We're 11 years down the road before we've even moved forward. So whoever comes in has to take the baton and accept this is the rule. And Silverstone, this isn't a personal criticism of the guy. He's Scottish, for God's sake, you know what I mean? But when he came in and took the role, for me, he had a blank canvas because we didn't have any sponsors apart from the House of Fraser and all the other brands that were associated with Mike Ashley. There was so much potential to grow, and I understand getting them in, and he's due huge commendation for getting Adidas. That's put us back on the map internationally. That puts Newcastle United strips around the globe in sports shops. That's a fantastic deal, but we don't sit back and pat him on the back and, okay, that's you doing your bit. If that's the only contacts you've got to bring extra money to this club, there's your job. Well done. Here's your payoff. We have to move forward. We expect the team to progress. We should expect the people off the field to progress as well. It has to go hand in hand. So I've never once called him stupid. I'm sure he'd be able to run rings around me with his commercial expertise. I just believe that we could have more sponsors in than what we've had. And I'll say that from living in the Middle East for over a decade. And I know that Mitch is fully aware of has the full and same opinion as I have. So if Mr. Silverstone is watching, well, I know there'll be people at the club watching and ask him to put it on. We're on 33 minutes. I think you've done a great job so far, Peter, but like a good school report, can do better. And I would expect you to do better, and I think you're capable of doing better, because if you weren't, you wouldn't still be in that role. So just to clear up, it's not a personal vendetta against him. He's the one that's at the top of the tree when it comes to attracting sponsorships and bringing them in. Then let him do his job and do it properly. That's all I'm saying. I don't want to keep banging the same drum. I just think when players get criticised, he hasn't done his job, and no one says anything about it. Why can't we say it about people off the field? We're all one club, aren't we? So we as supporters get asked to do our job by buying all this stuff and cheering as loud as you can and bringing your scarves. We're expected to do our bit. The least we can do is expect the people who are representing us to do their bit. And I honestly think he could do more than what he has done so far. That doesn't mean he's not capable. It doesn't mean he's stupid. It doesn't mean he's in above his water. I just think he could do better, and he should be in the Middle East speaking to these companies. He's got, and I said it last week, he could take a shiny brochure with pay effort in the front and just wave it around a lot of top companies. Do you want to be associated with these? Give us your money. And they'd say, yes, what's it for? That's my opinion of my knowledge from being here. So that's it.
Villa 1-0 up after 49 seconds against Tottenham. Ange Postecoglou's face says it all. We'll keep an eye on that as we go on through the show. Barry Hogan saying we are being linked with Osimhen again, who scored 17 goals in Turkey. Everyone said we couldn't afford his wages, but apparently he's on £120,000 a week in Turkey and desperate to play in the Premier League. Would you sign him if you could? I mean, he's a good player. He's a good player, and if his wages are fitting within our wage structure, then it would be remiss not to at least look at him. But you've got to look at what Eddie Howe and the business Eddie Howe's done, under the previous the previous way of doing things, and now Mitchell's in. I don't even know if he'd be in the frame, but good striker, Stu.
Yeah, I think he is, but if we say Osimhen, I think that would only be because Isak's went. And I don't think many of us want that to happen. And I can't see Eddie Howe changing his formation to accommodate two out-and-out strikers. And neither of them would be comfortable sitting on the bench, and neither they should, because they're both top-class strikers. The thing with Osimhen that's been labelled at him is his attitude. And we all know that Eddie Howe really has to have the player's attitude to be spot on to fit in with the culture that he's breeding. And we've got no time for showmen or big time Charlies or selfish people. You have to buy into the ethos that he's created, and that it's like everyone together. And I think maybe harshly, but from what I see from the outside looking in, Osimhen could be someone that could upset the apple cart that bit. But don't get us wrong, if he signed for us, I'd be delighted, but I can't say it. He's a direct centre forward. He's not a winger, and we've got the best centre forward in Europe. So for me, I'd keep Isak over anyone. And 120 grand a week. You know what? I just see him as a Chelsea player. Chelsea will try and sign Isak, and somehow they'll get told where to go, and I think that's where he'll end up at Chelsea. He's the sort of centre forward that they're signing, isn't he, over the years? The Shevchenkos and stuff like that. They'll sign a big name centre forward, start off really well, and then fade away. But I don't think he'll come to Newcastle.
What's your thoughts on Callum Wilson maybe given a 1-year extension, and Kieran Trippier as well? Somebody asked in the chat a little bit earlier on about Kieran Trippier. We can tie those two together. Where was it? I'll come back to it because I don't want to miss it. It was a good one. There we are. Steve C. Question on Trippier. Do you think the club should tie him down and offer a coaching position? Genuinely see him as a major part of the setup for years to come. He exudes professionalism. Would you give a contract to either or both?
I think now the time has passed where we could have got a fee for them. It was just past this time last year when there was interest in both. But bear in mind, we knew that Bayern Munich were in for Trippier and he went to visit them. And there's been times in the last 12 months when you think we should have taken what was offered. But there's also been times when we're being grateful that we didn't. But with Trippier, I think that first season he had for us, his attitude and everything else, we know that he was off the boil for personal reasons for a lot of the last 12 months. But he seems to have the bit between his teeth again. He seems to have the laser focus back again. And I wouldn't be against him because he does professionally. He leads by example on the pitch, and I'm sure on the training ground and with the younger players, tell them how to train properly and do the extra graft and everything like that. I wouldn't be against Trippier being like a youth team coach or involved with under 21s in the future. But he's already got an extension on his contract. He's signed up until the end of next year. Wilson isn't. So going back to probably the original part of the question is, would I be against Wilson signing for another year? For Callum Wilson all day long. The Callum Wilson where we may get 3 or 4 games, then 2 months out, you've got to say no. And then you have to run the risk of as Mitch says, when you have the same recurring injury, it never gets better. It always seems to get worse and happen more quickly. But for me, if we've got a limited budget, even though it'll be a bigger budget than what we've had, and we have to sign 2 or 3 players, and we are keeping the core of our team, the blue chip players, as we call them, I think we'll be looking at improving the right wing, centre half, and a goalkeeper. I think that's where the money would go. And if we went and bought out a top class striker or a young striker, even that Ferguson at Brighton, probably doesn't fit our mold. But let's say we did, we wouldn't get him for 40 unless it's 40 or 50 million. That money could be better spent if we're on a budget. So I would give Wilson another contract on the basis he proves himself from now to the end of the season regarding injuries. And there's so much ifs, buts, and maybes that have to be asked to answer that question properly. Because will he get injured again? What then? The answer's answered. The question's have answered itself. If he doesn't, and he starts banging in goals and allows Isaac to get rest, and they start playing like they did in the last 2 or 3 months of the Champions League qualifiers season, where they seem to score 2 goals and then the other person come on with half an hour to go, then they'd swap over, there'd be 2 goals with that. That's the Callum Wilson we want. And I'm sure that's the Callum Wilson he wants to give us as well. So I want to look on the brighter side of life and hope he stays injury-free. I think he deserves to. And if he does, then I wouldn't be against him extending the contract. And as long as he'd be aware that there'll be probably someone coming in to challenge him and to learn, even if it's just to get a fee for him, maybe this time next year if things aren't working out. So that was a long way of saying Trippier's staying anyway, and I would give Wilson an extra contract, providing he plays enough games between now, or he's available between now and the end of the season.
I quite like the idea that a lot of people are saying in the chat, pay as you play for Wilson, which, it's, Andy Carroll did it, didn't he? Came back, he was on £20,000 basic, and then if he made appearances, he got like bonuses. So there might be something along those lines. He may want to be, he may want to stay and be part of it. Just had a text off Mitch. He's just woke up. He has got the Super Bowl to look forward to as well. We'll have a quick ad break. We'll be back after this. A big thanks to all our sponsors, Skips and Bins. Say hello to low-cost waste disposal with pay-as-you-go and contract waste management. Find them at their website, skipsandbins.com. Contact them, www.skipsandbins.com/contact. A big thanks to Mr. Vicky's Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. You can find them at their website, mrvickies.co.uk, email info@mrvickies.co.uk, or telephone 01768 210 102. A big thanks to our fanzine sponsor, United Group Travel. 2 crew, driver and courier, local family company, 3-star plus quality hotels and no interchanges. All excursions included. Find them at their website, www.unitedgrouptravel.com. Email them at beverly.ugtl@gmail.com. Telephone 01670 632 460 or mobile 0791 666 4174. Just £30 per person deposit. There are no strangers on our tours, just friends you haven't met yet. A big thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the technical side of things. You can find them at their website, media-arts.co.uk. If you want to listen to us as a podcast, you can go to Sports Social Podcast Network. You can also find us on iTunes, Spotify, and your other podcast providers. If you want to help support the channel, hit the thumb up, which is the like button. Click share to share to your other social medias. Click join to join the channel, and click the subscribe button. We've also got links in our description for buy us a coffee and to be a Patreon member. Some events coming up: an afternoon with Sir Les Ferdinand, 6th of April, 12 till 4. Tickets available from ticketmaster.co.uk. No Covers takes place at the Cluny, Lilac Lane, Ryder, and the Chris Norris Band. Tickets from theclooney.com or by telephone on 0191 230 4474. An evening with Steve Howie and Steve Watson, hosted by Joe Allen, takes place at the Tyneside Irish Centre on the 27th of June. Tickets for that are from newcastlelegends.com. An evening with Peter Beardsley and Chris Waddle takes place at the Tyne Theatre and Opera House on the 23rd of January 2026. Box office 0844 246 1000 or website tynetheatreandoperahouse.tv. An evening with Bad Manners takes place on Friday the 30th of January 2026 and tickets available from ticketmaster.co.uk. And we have copies of The Entertainers 1992 to 1997, Kevin Keegan's Legacy, available from newcastlelegends.com. Okay, welcome back to the Professionals on NUFC Matters. Just a word on those Entertainers books. We've got 19 Lee Clark signed copies from Lee's do the other week at the Irish Centre. And if you haven't been on already, we have got a new flash website, www.nufcmatters.co.uk. If you click that, that's going to be our home from now on. All the links, all the relevant links you need are on there. Tickets for the events on there, and you can buy the book on there. As I say, the next 19 books that are sold will all have Lee Clark's signature on. So if you want one, a signed one, get yourself onto the website tonight. A couple of other stuff that was put forward during the break. Paul said Silverstone needs to explain to the rank and file fans, not staged announcements to the chosen few, FAB or at the stack. Well, yeah, we did hear that they were going to come out and say something in due course. Eddie Howe's press conference, Lee Marshall confirmed that there's going to be something very, very soon. So hopefully there will be something that comes out from that. John says, question, would Murphy have squared that ball if it was Isak in the middle? It's a good point, actually. Yeah, it probably would have done. But yeah, I mean, look, it was a great performance. 1-3-2, and Newcastle are through the fifth round of the FA Cup and in the final of the Carabao Cup. We can't complain, can we? Barry says, Steve, is the plans about building a new stadium onto the corner of the current stadium a definite, or is it just another suggested idea? Well, Stu covered that at the start, Barry. You might have tuned in late. Look, we've been talking about what potential, styles and designs and capacity could be on this show. Some people now are claiming stuff that we've been saying for quite a while as an exclusive. Look, it's more than likely that what you're seeing is going to be as close to the genuine, item as we could say it is. The journalists who put it out there don't put stories out unless they're 100% certain that that's what it's going to look like and that's what it's going to be like. So we'll just have to wait and see. They're probably a lot further down the road than we know and anybody else knows. But it will happen at some point, and I'm sure there'll be an announcement in due course. But we'll just have to wait and see, Barry, is the honest answer to that question. VAR. Let's move on to this. Benny says, anybody thinking get rid of VAR? Did you see the Man United Leicester game in the FA Cup? A reminder of what happens when you play Man United and Liverpool and officials are given the opportunity to cheat. I mean, VAR has played an interesting part, in different ways and forms this season for us. I think we've had the rub of the green with it so far, Stu. I'm dreading what the rest of the season holds because, we seem to have been, VAR has been more of a friend than an enemy to us. You can cast your mind back to when Alexander Isak made his debut for Newcastle at Anfield and was caught offside with his shadow. But we've had the rub of the green with it. But yeah, there's been some weird situations, and I'm not one for VAR not being in the competition and then VAR being in the competition because it is crazy, and I guess it's because it's in the later rounds it tends to be two Premier League teams, but a situation like the one at Leicester that changes the game. It's a change of game. Leicester could go to extra time with Man United, and Leicester could have won in extra time, but because there's no VAR, then that's the position you find yourself in. Joe Willock's goal last night could have been ruled out if VAR had been part of it. There was no goal line technology and there was no VAR, so we'll have to rely on good old fashioned assistant linesman, the linesman to come up with his flag. And I mean, his flag was straight up. To me, it looked like the ball crossed the line, but who would know? But what's your feelings about VAR being in things and not being in things, and then coming into it at the later stage?
I'm not sure we've had the rub of the green, you know, Steve. I think we've had decisions that have been probably given correctly after scrutiny, but also, even if the game we had during the week against Arsenal, how many people would have given that Isak's first one that was disallowed as offside? It wasn't in it. And when you have to look at something as many times and for as long as that, then it's not clear and obvious. And there'll be every fan of every country, of every club in the country will think they've been hard done to by VAR. But what the VAR is meant to do, remember, we'll have to repeat this. It's not the VAR that's making the mistakes. It's the people who are running it, operating it. And it shouldn't be subjective. You know, the rules are there for us all to see. And if you think that that ball is offside, then if it's proven it's offside, it's fine. But it shouldn't take you 3 or 4 minutes to try and find a line that's probably not straight, or a shadow, or an armpit, or a fingernail, or a toenail. The rules should be that it's meant to favour the forward, and that's happened to Isak there. And you mentioned the one on his debut, and there's plenty of other times that we see it's went against us or it's went in our favour. But if it's done correctly, where there's no subjectivity, then I don't think anyone can complain. What is when it's the inconsistency. If we get a decision against us, and they go, okay, that's fine, but then in the next game in another team, the same incident happens, and it doesn't get given. And I think that causes the biggest frustration amongst us all. I mean, I'm frustrated tonight about Dr. Neil's performance. It's really unprofessional for a professional, isn't it? So I think when I get my hands on him for 4 days on the London trip, I'll have to give him some training on how to drink alcohol and still be able to perform. Because over the weekend, I went out on Friday afternoon with Kev from the Saudi magazine, he's better half Lena, and we ended up coming back here, and we did lots and lots of Jaeger bombs, lots of Hendrix and lemonade, and then I put him in a taxi about 11:30. I was at work at 9 o'clock the next morning, did 8 hours, and he was still knackered last night. So practice makes perfect, Mitch. If you're watching, and I know you're listening, sort yourself out, drink some water, and then I'll see you through the week. So back to VAR, we have to make sure that it's a scapegoat that's easy, and it's clear to me that some teams are favoured more than others. And you mentioned that Leicester thing against Man United. There's so many incidents, and it seems to be the bigger teams that favour of them in an attacking sense. But again, you have to consider these teams are attacking more, so there will be more incidents where they're going to be involved in. But Arsenal, who seem to get a lot of the rub of the green, they're claiming that they're unlucky. They've had 2 players sent off for kicking the ball away, while other teams haven't had players sent off for kicking the ball away. That's not the VAR. The VAR highlights what's been done. It's the people in St. George's that make the decision. And then if they're not consistent with it, that's what causes the frustration. We just need to, I think sometimes we have to accept where, and that's the hardest part, because football is an emotional game. You've got to accept sometimes that the decisions are going to go against you, but when it's clear and obvious, they shouldn't go against you, and that's the problem.
Yeah, it definitely is. I stand corrected, Stu. You're the legend, as you're here, and Mitch is still recovering. Yeah,
I think he consumed far more than I did the last 24 hours, and I'm surprised he's actually awake, to be fair.
Darren asks how many points we think Newcastle will get from the next 3 Premier League fixtures. Of course, we've got Manchester City away, Nottingham Forest at home, and then Liverpool away. What you feeling? How you feeling about those 3?
5 points. I think we'll beat Man City, we'll draw at home at Forest, and we'll get a point at Anfield.
Okay, I'm going to go for 7.
I think if you look at how Man City have been playing, and all Newcastle have done over the last couple of years is rare kudos in, this season alone. They've won at the Emirates for the first time in a long time. They've won at Old Trafford for the first time in a long time in the league. And it's not the same. I went to the game at the Etihad last year when Botman got his injury in the cup game. and it's not as intimidating now. And I think if we're on our game, we've got more verve, passion, pace, skill, nous in the middle of the park, and that's normally where games are won and lost. And I think we could go there and actually do a number on them as long as we believe we can. And I think this group of players have shown more than anything that they'll rise to the games against the bigger teams. And I think we can win on Saturday. And then Forest at home is a different proposition for us because, not because what they did last season, but we won't have as much of the ball. Sorry, we'll have more of the ball. And they have, as good as we are at hitting on the counter-attack, that's how they play their game. And the onus will be on us as the home team. So I think we could drop a point there. And then I think we'll go to Anfield and there'll be a lot of main games going on with team selections and everything else. Because Liverpool are that far ahead, they could afford to drop a couple of points. Where do we really want to go and show our hand? I think a lot of it will depend on the availability of players. But I could see us going there. I mean, if we can go there and get draws when Colback and that's playing for us, we can go there when Sonali's playing for us and get a draw at least. And that'll put a marker down for the game next month. So I would say 5 points. If you're saying 7, then I'll happily be wrong and you be right.
Okay, Chris Cooper says, question, lads. I know FFP and stuff's massively relevant these days. Do you think it'll still be a thing in 5 years' time, or do you think Man City's challenges will mean it'll be scrapped? I mean, where we're going to be in 5 years' time? It's a Mystic Meg moment. It's crystal ball out. But do you think it'll still be as bad in 5 years' time? Just your opinion, Stu.
They're going to have to change it because and for 2 or 3 reasons, there's too many people, fans. And now clubs, influential clubs, who are being affected by it, which in turn then starts affecting the Premier League, the brand, and they've got no right to be the biggest watched league on the planet. And if everyone's crying poverty every single transfer window, and only one team spent any sort of money in the window just gone, and everyone was careful last summer, and everyone's talking about being careful again this summer, only 2 or 3 clubs will be able to spend money. It becomes a less attractive proposition. So, but it goes back to what I said in the previous question answering this, Steve, was they could change it to Premier League, but then you've got the rules in Europe, which are there to benefit the 2 big Spanish teams first and foremost, but also like the Bayern Munichs, the Juventuses, and they haven't got a share of the Premier League pie. So we could do it, but then you'd have to have different rules and different squads for going into Europe unless that all gets challenged again. And then it becomes a political and a legal minefield. And this is what's turning people off. This is why the last 2 games for Newcastle, for me, is revitalised a lot of people's love of the game, just the football, because that's what we are, we're fans. We're not accountants, we're not lawyers, we're football fans. And when you see that atmosphere and the passion from the players, the commitment from the players, everyone at St. James's on Wednesday was one. Everyone was together, and that's when we're at our best. That's why we are Newcastle United. That gave everyone so much pride that night, and ever since. I think most people walk around with a banana in their mouth. The smile was that big, weren't it? After the way they dismantled us. And then yesterday, as we touched at the top of the show, that it was a proper old-fashioned cup game, yet we come through where we've using bananas again. It's a banana skin we've slipped on a regular basis over the last few decades. And even when we went 1 down, there was an air of confidence that we'll turn it around. And they have got that belief amongst them, even like with the, shouldn't call them reserves, but the squad players coming in. But if you look at when Murphy came on, he had the air of, I'm a senior player now. I'm not a fringe player. I'm a senior player, and I'm good. And he played with confidence. Where in the past, he came on in a game like that and hid, and not wanted to take any risks. But he was willing to run with the ball. He knew his role, and he seemed to play really well. So that's what football is about. The FA Cup League it was yesterday. I know it's old school, and we have to move with the times as well. But a cup semi-final like that on Wednesday, and then a 4th round away to a low league team with all the elements and the fans against us. And I think it's just brilliant. And that's why we love football. And the fact that we've got 2 positive results as well is a huge bonus for us all.
Yeah, I would agree. Stephen, good evening. He says, having watched and compared keepers yesterday, we need a new good keeper in the summer. Pope makes me crap myself with the ball at his feet. One good pass apart. His distribution was awful. Again, 9 changes to the team yesterday. Pope was one of them. I still think we've got 2 decent keepers, but I think moving forward, I think a new keeper is a priority. But, I still think we could get by the next season or 2 with these 2 goalkeepers. I'm not sure we will. I think we will spend on a keeper at some point. But yeah, Stephen Wright, would you like to see a new keeper this summer?
I think if we could give Pope Dubravka's feet, then we'd have a top keeper, wouldn't we? So we're in a situation where I think that it's now Dubravka's shirt to lose. And if you look at the run of games, yeah, they conceded against Bournemouth and Fulham, but that's 6 goals. But if you look at since he came in, there was about 14 games. We conceded about 8 goals, and there was 14 games. No goalkeeper should be losing the position for that. The thing that niggles in the back of my mind is how loyal Eddie Howe is to the team. And I'm quite certain that on Saturday, Dubravka will start at Man City. But I'm starting to worry that he's going to be thinking in the back of his head he's one bad game away from being dropped. And that might play on his performance as the lead up to Wembley, because we know Pope missed out last time. And is Eddie Howe going to say, I'll put you back in? But it would be really, really wrong and bad for morale within the camp if he put Pope back in next week, since the Saudi transfer window shut and Dubravka turned down life-changing sums of money to stay loyal to us. I think we need to make sure that we replicate that to him, provided his performances are still there. And I think, for me, the defence looks more composed when they're passing the ball back to him, because they know that invariably he'll use the ball better, rather than, we better hang back a little bit because this could get sliced anywhere, or it could be a misplaced pass. And that can cost, that hesitancy can cost us 10 or 20 yards in a game. And that can be quite crucial for the way we play. So for me, it's Dubravka's to lose, but short stoppers and etc. That he's exceptional as Nick Pope. But he's got time now to work on his feet. Well, he's had his whole career to do so. But he has to be more composed, because if we as fans are breaking it when it's getting back, you're expecting the old-fashioned bubble, but it's not. There's no bubble. He's just got probably marbles in his shoes or something, and it's like 50 pence feet just bouncing off everywhere, and it slows down the progress that we're trying to make up the pitch. We concede possession more often when Pope's in goal than we do when Dubravka's in goal. So for me, it should be Dubravka that stays there until he has 2 or 3 bad games in a row. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I would say, for me personally, I think we can get through for the next, season, 2 seasons with, with these 2 goalkeepers. I think Newcastle will eventually bring somebody new in, but, Dubravka got save of the month, as Chris Whiteley points out, against Wolves. I mean, he is a lot better at the moment than people will give him credit for. I think when you watch the highlights of the Arsenal game back from midweek, when Dubravka went down injured a couple of times, I genuinely thought he was, he was injured at one point, or he was, and then I thought, is he doing a bit of game management here? But I tell you what, he didn't want to go off, and it's exactly that reason that Stu's saying. It's in his mind. God, if I go off now and Nick Pope gets in, I might never get back in again. It will be going through his mind. So, it's good because we've got competition in that place. And, for a fact that if Pope comes in, we know, his kicking isn't as good, but, he's a great shot stopper. He won't let us down, and he'll have a point to prove as well when he gets back in, because he knows he's got Dubravka breathing down his neck. So it's healthy. It's certainly healthy. Denise says Pope did play okay with regards saves, just needs games now. I'd still have Dubravka as number 1. How's likely to keep Pope as second keeper unless proved otherwise by either keeper? And Anthony says apparently the Pope is visiting Geordie Dancer this week for some choreography tips. I'm sure Dave would be very happy to give him some choreography tips. Good lad there, the Geordie Dancer. Both keepers are subpar, both on the chopping line in the summer, says Sean. Ask the Tyne defenders who's better. I know who they will say. I'm not the biggest fan of any of our keepers, says Craig. I wanted a proper keeper last summer. And looks like Liverpool are concentrating on the Premier League and the Champions League, says James. It certainly looked like that today. What did Mark say about it? Pope is splar-footed, and there's not a lot of good splar-footed footballers over the years. I can only think of Robert Perez, to be honest. I'm watching the Aston Villa Spurs match. None of the strikers could lace Isaac's boots. Stu, what do you think of Vlachimidos? We're not really seeing a great deal of him, have we?
No, I think this is Eddie Howe showing his ruthless side. I didn't want him. I didn't scout him. I didn't approve it. I've got him. I'll keep him and use him if I absolutely have to. But I thought he might have moved on in the last window because he could retain a fee. But the way the PSR works, if we sold him for less than 15 million, we would have sold him at a loss. And I don't think many people would come buy 15 million for him or pay 15 million for him. So I think we'll be having him till at least the summer, if not beyond. But I think out of the three keepers, the three main keepers we've got, even the two reserve ones, out of the five keepers that we've got, I'll be surprised if more than two of them are there this time next year. So it's just a case of would Pope happy to stay be number two? Would Dubravka, if he signs an extension, stay as number two from a new keeper that comes in? That's up to Mr. Paul Mitchell and Eddie Howe to sort out, thankfully. But Vlachimos, I've been impressed with him in the games I've watched him for Greece. I can't say I've watched too much of him. He did all right in the friendly he had for us as well. But I hope the next time he plays, the next two times he plays competitively, I hope he has an absolute nightmare because they're against Scotland in the Nations League. So that's next month. So I hope he does have a nightmare and he hasn't had games to play. But joking aside, it was quite obvious as a transfer that we didn't, how do we word this carefully, actively seek to complete. It was something that we got because we had to. And if he's on a 5-year deal at 20 million, it's 4 million a year depreciation. So if you keep him for 2 years, it's not to sell him for 12 to break even. If not, you're selling him, it's at a loss. So I know people say sell him for 10 million, we've got 10 million in, but his book value after 1 year is going to be 16 million. And that's where the problem lies with it. But this is, again, going back to what's all wrong with PSR and financial fair play. Regarding the cup draw, I think we're going to get Brighton. I don't know why. For some reason, I think we'll get drawn against Brighton. And I thought that before they beat Chelsea.
Yeah, I mean, you know, there's always those kind of draws as well where in a season where you end up playing the same team twice. So I've just had a feeling that we could end up playing a team that we've already played in the cup. So that's where I'm going. I'm not going to say who, but I've just got a feeling we'll end up again with a team that we've already played in the Carabao Cup this season. We will wait and see. Genuine question, still talking about the cup from Benny. Now that Liverpool and Arsenal are out, do we have as good a chance at winning the FA Cup as the League Cup, do you think?
Yeah, I said that before. There won't be many teams that will fancy getting drawn against Newcastle United. The two teams at the top of the league are out, which then leaves who's the best 3-4 teams after that? It's us, Man City, Chelsea and Forest. And I'd fancy us against any of them, especially at home. I think the team we need to fear at the moment is Bournemouth. They seem to have the sign over us. So if we can avoid Bournemouth, why can't we go to Wembley 3 times this year? Because the semi-finals are there as well, obviously. It's on. It's possible. I'm not sure about your treble, Steve, but the cup double could be on.
Yeah. Stephen Kennedy says, any thoughts on Longstaff? Did he do enough in your mind to be the first choice replacement in midfield? I thought Miley was exceptional. I always find it difficult, for Sean, because Sean, his job when he's in this team is to do the dirty work, isn't he? So from my perspective, I genuinely think that Longstaff gets a lot of criticism from people when it's unnecessary. I've always liked Sean. I think he's a great player, and I think he's one of those players who, when he's gone, people will miss him a great deal. But I I don't get the negativity towards Sean. Yes, we've got some wonderfully talented midfield players. Bruno, Tonali, stand out, of course, Joe Linton for his own reasons. But Sean Longstaff has done a hell of a lot for Newcastle United as a player, and he's a local lad. I just think he's good cover, and I think Eddie appreciates what he does.
So do I. And not that that's going to go a long way in the Longstaff household. I mean, there's people too quick to criticise him, and there always has to be someone who's the whipping boy for a certain section of fans. And if you look, Miggy got it, but look at the response he got from what I would call the loyal fans, the ones who travelled all the way to Southampton. That's, to me, who I gauge as the fans. And I know last time I said proper fans and was it a slip of the tongue. But I'm on about the ones who do the hard yards. Miggy got a fantastic wave off from that. And I'd like to think the same would happen to Sean. Now, if Sean's happy to stay at Newcastle and be a squad player, then I've got no qualms with that being. He's a homegrown player. It helps with the European thing. But, was he man in the match yesterday? No, he wasn't. Was he the worst player on the pitch? No, he wasn't. But he's just seems to be an easy target, and that's not what we're about as Newcastle fans. We're meant to look after our own, especially the ones that try. And for me, how can you have people who haven't performed as well as Sean over the last year, over the last 2 years, get free passes when they make mistakes, but he gets jumped on? For me, it's a lot of it is cyberbullying, to be honest. Is he in the same league as Bruno or Tonali? I think you'd be the first to admit he's not. But Sean Longstaff's been crucial for us in many games over the last few years, and I think some people tend to forget that because we as a club are progressing. Just to reiterate, is he going to be in the starting 11? No. Is he worthy of a place at 25? Yes, unless we're going to sign 12 players in the summer. I think he will be here next year if he wants to be. Maybe he's of the opinion where he thinks he can play first team football in the Premier League, and then that's up to his agent and two clubs to speak with each other and let him go. But until then, he'll always have my support, as will every player who puts on the black and white shirt. And sometimes if you support him a bit, he might play better. And as you said, Steve, he does the dirty work. His job's not to get the ball and beat three people and then put a worldie into the top corner. It's to get the ball and recycle it and give it to the more naturally gifted players. And invariably he does that. I think sometimes when he gets caught out, he gets highlighted too much. But he's not a starting player now, and I think he'll be aware of that himself. But can he do a job in the squad? Absolutely. I'd love to keep Sean.
Sadly, he's getting a lot of pelters in the chat. A lot of people don't like him and wish he wasn't at the club. So I'm not going to read them out. I'll read Chris's out. Runs his heart out, tries very hard. That's what us Geordies get behind. Not the most talented, but got in the team.
Exactly.
Because he gives everything, nothing but respect for him. Yeah, listen. Agree, Stu and Steve. Longstaff's still a vital player for what he brings to the game, and all the squad needs a Longstaff. He plays a part in many quarters in the club. And I think if you do get behind the players that do give a lift, some players don't read social media, some players aren't on it. Sean is and does, and he's already said in his interviews it does affect him. I've heard him refer to it on more than one occasion. So positivity towards him, I think, is what's required. Longstaff has an 8 out of 10 game, but normally it's a 5 out of 10, says T-Tank. Again, it's where he plays. Nobody remembers the people who do the dirty work, unfortunately. George asked a question earlier. He's asking if we'd buy back Elliot Anderson. You know what, your question earlier about the CEO, George, I keep seeing you mention it and I never get back to it. Nobody knows about the CEO yet. It's still ongoing. Although I can't put the screenshot on screen. I will read it to you. Hold on. There's a job application came up on my LinkedIn account today. Executive assistant to the sporting director. And then on LinkedIn it said, we highlight job details that match your preferences and skills. Apply below. So there we go. Executive assistant to the sporting director at Newcastle United. I'm apparently my CV matches what they're looking for. So should I put it in? Should I apply for the job? Do you think, Stu?
Definitely. Definitely. You're very well thought of within the club.
Maybe I'll give it a miss. I think it'll just get overlooked at TV. It'll go in the bin. But yeah, it's a classic. I might ask the club if I should put forward for it. I don't think they'll take me on though. Somebody's just put in the chat as well about Paul from Toon Review. I didn't know about that. I don't watch any of the other channels. I do 7 shows a week. I haven't got time to watch anybody else's, unfortunately. Darren has put, I don't know if you're aware, but Paul from Toon Review had a stroke live on the Arsenal watch along. Get well soon, Paul. I didn't know that. If that is the case, get well soon, Paul. Yeah, Paul is a nice guy. Did jump on his podcast quite a few times during lockdown, and if that is the case, get well soon, Paul. I'm sure everybody is.
All the best, mate.
Oh, yeah. Imagine the fume if you got that, Steve. Yeah, Mark, I think there might be a little bit of criticism if I was appointed. Question, what position do we finish in the season? And now we play Liverpool in the final. Do we win the cup? Well, if you remember what my prediction was, hold on, let me see if I can bring this up. I definitely kept it because what I did was I actually tweeted Jamie Carragher at the start of the season. He was asking people for predictions. Here we go. I'll get my tweet up. So I'm going to stick. I am still going to stick with what my prediction was. Now we've got to take the banner off. Bear with us, folks. It's worth the wait. There you go. That was my prediction for the season. Now, obviously, Man City aren't going to win the league. Arsenal still got a chance. I predicted Newcastle would be third. Manchester United would be nowhere. Aston Villa would be fourth. Liverpool would be fifth. And Tottenham would be sixth. So miles out with Spurs. Miles out with Liverpool. Villa are in and around it, though. I still fancy Newcastle to finish third. Arsenal, I probably have got that right. Man City, that chance is gone now. And I put an NUFC to win their first domestic trophy since 1955. And it'll be in the FA Cup final. That's what I said. So there's my prediction. Needless to say, at the bottom of my tweet, I did leave that on because Melly Barnes, the Manchester United fan, put those two laughing emojis because I didn't put Manchester United in the top 6 and because I predicted that we would win a trophy and Manchester United wouldn't. Oh dear, Melly. We'll wait and see what comes of that. But there you go. So that was my prediction. What about you, Stu? You still fancying a top 4 and a cup?
It's all dependent on injuries. As I've voiced on more than one occasion, I've got a £400 bet at 9-4 for Newcastle to finish in the top 4. But I'd forsake that for us to win a trophy every day of the week for sure. And I was speaking to you before we come on, Steve. Got Liverpool fans in the group that me and Mitch are in, and there was Man City fans, there's Chelsea fans, there's Everton fans, and they're all having a go at the Liverpool fan, and he says, "Yeah, this is what's your excuse now?" Because I think there was a commentator said just near the end. I hadn't watched the game. Just near the end, that's Plymouth are just about to beat the best team in the land, and his reasoning was, well, the best team in the land were all at home having a Sunday lunch and they weren't on the pitch. So I put a gif on of a big box of excuses. And he says, "Don't worry, lad, we'll have our full strength team when we play at Wembley." And I said, "I hope so, because you'll have no excuses when I better not swear, beat you."
Yeah.
And that's what I want. I want us to play against their full strength team. And if we have the same focus as we did and the same players available as we did on Wednesday, we'll beat them. Because you could see Gordon running rings around Trent Alexander-Arnold, the most overrated defender in the history of the Premier League. Yeah, he can pass a ball, but so can Fabian Shaw. There's the other fullback, whoever it is, whether it's Robertson and I can't pronounce his name, so I'm going to have to be a bit xenophobic and call him the Greek lad. I think Murphy would have the beating of them, and I think our midfield 3 can impose themselves against their midfield 3. And then Isak versus Van Dijk, I think he loves playing against them, doesn't he? I really think on the open spaces at Wembley, with what will be probably 35,000 Newcastle fans there, I honestly think we're going to beat them. And so for me, that's one trophy. If we're being greedy, or as Mr. Mitchell Senior says, a greedy little duck, I would take the League Cup over anything right now. I'd swap it for everything right now. But Can we finish top 4? Let's see where we are at the end of February once we've went through that run of 3 games, because it is still congested with Villa. We see what happened. Chelsea being on a bad run, and then they got 1 win when ourselves and Man City's didn't, and they've leapfrogged us. So it can change very quickly. And you got Bournemouth hanging around there and Villa hanging around there. So we could be sitting 8th come the end of February, but we could also be sitting there possibly 3rd or 4th and consolidate ourselves. So there's a lot to play for. But I can't see why we can't get to the cup final. But again, the only reason why we couldn't would be injuries. If we can maintain a relatively fit squad without too many of the blue chip players getting injured, we could get the 2 cup finals. And wouldn't it be fantastic if we got Champions League as well? That it is possible, Steve. It genuinely is. And how many people who were calling for Eddie Howe's head at the start of December would have said we're going to win 2 cups and have a realistic chance to get the Champions League? That's where we are sitting right now in February.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting run into the season. Looking forward to how it all pans out. I've just gifted 5 NUFC Matters memberships. So Jacqueline Hood, Croc the Crocodile, Andy Ford, Mick Gilchrist and Ben Porter have all received them. I'll probably do another 5 later in the week. We're going to draw a close there because I've got to now go and pre-record Monday's show. Not able to do a live tomorrow night. So big thank you to everybody watching. 900 of you watching live tonight. 300 of you on YouTube, which means 600 on Twitter. If you are on Twitter, please jump over to YouTube when the show finishes, search NUFC Matters and hit the subscribe button. It is free and we still do 7 shows a week. And Chris Cooper, I did get your message. I will send you a link for the fans forum next week. If you want to jump on live, he's asking if you can come on a show. No problem with that, mate. If you want to come on next Monday, a week on Monday, it'll be 6 o'clock. But I will send you a link on Twitter. Stu, thanks for being part of it. Mitch, I hope you get the result you want in the Super Bowl. And Stu, I'll see you on Wednesday night because we are going to be bringing back Geordie's here. Geordie's there on Wednesday night. So looking forward to seeing you then, mate.
Yep. No problem, mate. See you soon. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Have a good Sunday evening.